I'd like to hand over to Councillor Bridget Smith to say a few words.
Thank you very much indeed, Eleanor. So it's definitely Bridget for the purposes of this evening. So firstly, I'd like to thank Eleanor and Siobhan for all the effort they've put into this and all the other sessions which I know are going to be run over the next fortnight. And also special thanks to Annie Saunders, who's going to be talking to us about the fantastic work that she's been leading on, which I think actually quite a lot of you have been involved in. So yes, I'm leader of the council for my sins, and it's really nice to see some friendly faces here. I'm sitting beside my lovely new curtains, which Margot Wilshire's just finished making for me. Thanks, Margot, they're lovely. And I'm really excited to hear about Mark's plans for in Histon, for actually buying a nature reserve in Histon. So I'd love to know more about that, Mark, because we usually just talk about charitable third sector stuff. So this is the launch of the annual Climate and Environment Fortnight, and the whole point of it is to celebrate all the climate action that takes place in the district, and look at some of the things that we as a council have been doing in order to respond to the climate and ecological emergencies. And I'm sure there'll be an opportunity to talk about some of the things that you are doing as well. So this is very much a team approach. None of us are going to solve this problem alone. It's going to take all of us, and big things and little things. I was just reading the new biodiversity supplementary planning document, which talks about big stuff, but also talks about swift boxes and hedgehog highways. So, you know, it's the little things as well that I think can often engage people. So this is a timely point, as our climate environment team has just been selected as a finalist for the IESE, and we can't find out what that means, but the Green Public Service Awards. And that highlights our commitment and strength in the work to become a green, you know, a really significant player in being green to our core as a council. So, you know, fantastic work. These awards are really competitive. So to get this far is a real acknowledgement of the tremendous commitment by the council as a whole, and by our officers in particular. So as more parish councils and community groups around the district recognise the climate and ecological emergencies and want to take action, we want to offer you more support and give you some more ideas on what to do next and how you can make a difference. And obviously one size doesn't fit all. I live in Gamlingay. What works in Gamlingay won't work so well in Hatley, where Margot lives, or in Histon, where I presume now Mark lives. So it's about having a whole menu of things that everybody can pick from in order to have a response that's meaningful to your residents and your place. So we're really lucky today to have Annie from Cambridge Carbon Footprint here. She's the climate lead. She runs the Climate Leader Training Programme, Net Zero Now, which I know has been crucial in training community leaders around the district on climate change over the past year. So really exciting work to really allow all of us to be those champions that our communities, even on a really small scale, need. So as a result of this work, climate groups have formed around the district, parish councils have declared climate emergencies, and events such as the Repairs Cafe have been planned. And I've got a whole load of stuff waiting to go to a Repairs Cafe rather than send it off to landfill. So Annie will be speaking to us today about the programme and giving you some ideas on how to get action going in your own area, or more action over and above what you're already doing. And we'll start, however, with a talk from our very own development officer, Siobhan Mellon, who is a star within our council. And she'll talk through the approach that we've taken as a district council to tackling the climate and ecological emergencies and of working up a plan which makes the most of our widening circles of influence, and how this approach can be adapted to any size of organisation. So over to you, Siobhan. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Bridget. And I can't help but say, just it's so nice to be introduced by you, because when I started at the council, which was a little over 10 years ago, as the project officer for the Sustainable Parish Energy Partnership, I used to think of my job as Gamlingayising the rest of the district, because Gamlingay has got a community wind turbine and also a wonderful award-winning eco hub, which Bridget has been very involved in. So it is she walks the talk, I would say. Right, okay, I don't wish to spend too long because I want to pass over to Annie as quickly as possible, but I will now just share my screen and go through a few slides here with you. Okay, let's just see if I can bring my notes up as well. It's always the way. I thought I was going to have some notes to speak to, but I don't, so never mind, we'll just as long as I can go through. Right, okay, so community action in response to the climate emergency. And the first thing I wanted to say was that a good response to the climate emergency involves both stopping being part of the problem, cutting carbon emissions, being part of the race to net zero emissions. It also involves adapting or building resilience to the climate impacts, which we're already feeling. And we've had quite a windy weekend, but extreme weather events. And but in this evening, we're going to focus on the first part of that and leave the adaptation, the building resilience, maybe for another time. Just see if I can move that on. Yes, there we go. So yeah, so as Bridget said, I just wanted to talk through the basic approach that we've taken as a council, and not really say much about it, except that it is about widening circles of influence. And clearly, as the district council, we have far more resources than you do as community groups and parish councils. But this basic approach, I think, can be quite useful, whereby you focus first on what you have control over and setting a good example and doing what you can there. Then on your direct influence and what you can influence. So that's often actually the things that you purchase, the things that you buy. For the council, it's also our policies. But for parish councils and community organisations, it's and also households, it's what you buy. And also your wider influence. Who else are you influencing? Who are you talking to? How can you get them to follow your good example? And so so in terms of the emissions that you have control over, well, most of this will be the carbon emissions that come from your own estate in terms of the gas, coal or oil that you use to heat your buildings, the vehicle fuel, the petrol and diesel in your vehicles, and electricity, although the carbon emissions are not directly are not actually from they come from where the power is generated. It makes sense to include that. If you know what those are, you can calculate your carbon footprint. And in our climate emergency toolkit, we have got some details on how to do that. So calculate your carbon footprint, work out a plan for what you can do about that, and that may well be quite long term. You're not going to be able to sort out new heating systems, etc., straight away, but just bear it in mind so that you can take the opportunities as they come up. But also look at the other aspects of your influence and make a plan to include all of those. A few things to think about. Energy surveys. Now, a lot of parish councils have had energy surveys through the council. Some of those are still, the reports are to come fairly soon. We're not doing energy surveys from the council anymore, but they are available through Eastern New Energy. And I'll put a link in the chat so that you can find out how to get hold of those, because that way you can have a clear plan of how to cut carbon emissions on your buildings. Electric bikes. just think about whether there are journeys that could be done with an electric bike. That's something that on the continent, they're much further ahead than we are, worth thinking about. Greener purchases. Can you get recycled paper? Can you buy secondhand things? Kind of thing. Neighbourhood plan. Have you thought through the possibilities for making a greener neighbourhood plan? Again, there's information about that on our website. Community events, village energy days, things like that. And a few more things to think about. Just a few things that the council are involved in that you may be able to promote in your local communities. We are part of the Solar Together Cambridgeshire group buying scheme for solar PV for the 2nd year running. The registrations for that have just started, and there will be a reverse auction to get a supplier for solar PV in the coming weeks. So that's something that may well be of interest. Can you promote that in your villages? Secondly, home energy advice, and there are various options here. There is a government endorsed website, Simple Energy Advice, where you can put in details of your own house and get out a list of the measures that could be taken on that house with accredited suppliers. We also, as a council, we've partnershiped with the Local Energy Advice Partnership for personalised advice. There are some income thresholds for that, but they do try to be as flexible as possible, so worth encouraging people to get in touch with them. Again, a link is there on our website for personalised advice about saving energy. And finally, action on energy. We have got funding from the government Green Homes Grant Local Authority Delivery Scheme for work to around 80 houses. Again, there are income thresholds, but again, that's something that it would be good to get the word around. So we would appreciate your help with that. I seem to have gone backwards, I think. Let's see. There we go. Funding. So there are a couple of funding opportunities that the council have. There is our Zero Carbon Communities grant scheme, which gives awards annually. We're coming up for the 4th round of that, and up to £15,000 is available there for projects to cut carbon and engage communities on climate. So that is opening for application soon, probably next month. Proposals are going to the Grants Advisory Committee this Friday. You can see on our website the various grants that have been given for that over the years. And secondly, the community chest. Now, the grants here are smaller. However, they have gone up. They used to be 1,000, it's now up to 2,000 per project. And awards are made monthly here. And just because there's a Zero Carbon Communities grant doesn't mean to say you can't apply to the community chest for projects that fit their criteria. It doesn't normally include parish councils other than the larger, other than the very smallest ones, the ones with under 160 electors. However, there is a new biodiversity pot, ring-fenced money for biodiversity projects, and for that pot, all parish councils, no matter what size, can apply. So if you have a nature-related scheme, then do have a good look at that. We have a climate emergency toolkit on our website. If you go to the home page and the climate emergency and nature button, you'll see a link to it in there. That includes details of how to calculate your carbon footprint. It's very much a work in progress. We would be very happy to have your comments, even better your case studies, so that we can really build that up and get that as good as we possibly can. And finally, the Green Connect online networking events that Ellie has pioneered since she started in November at the council. Meet, Learn, Share. These are monthly events where we can not only hear from people who have done interesting things around our area, but also in small groups actually talk to each other, bounce ideas off each other, share ideas. We're really keen to hear from you as to what kind of things you would like profiled in those sessions coming up. So again, do please get in touch. And I will now pass over to Annie. Just work out how to unshare my screen. Yeah, it seems as though I have unshared my screen. Right.
Okay, hi everyone. Can everyone see my screen? Yeah, does it work? Great. So hello, my name is Annie Sander. I work for Cambridge Carbon Footprint as a project manager. And as has been said in the introduction, I was a key part in delivering our Net Zero Now training last year to a selected few community leaders around South Cambridgeshire. And so that was a 8-session long training course, which I'm now trying to squeeze into 20 minutes. So bear with me. What we're trying to cover today is just a quick look at what does net zero carbon mean, which climate action could you take, just a quick overview over what's involved in project planning, a community action, then some tips and tricks around managing groups and volunteers, and good community events and communication. So just a quick introduction into Cambridge Carbon Footprint. I hope most of you will have heard of us. We are a teeny tiny charity based in Cambridge, but growing our network out across Cambridgeshire. And we do events like Open Eco Home, where we invite people to share their insights into building or refurbishing their houses to a very environmentally friendly standard. Then we do events like swishes, so clothes swaps and repair cafes. And everything we do is really around community engagement, positive intervention, and getting people to see positive ways to reduce their personal carbon footprints. So when we talk about net zero carbon, what does that mean? So in a nutshell, it means that we don't produce more carbon emissions than can be filtered out of the air. So I won't get into much more background than that just because of time, but it basically means that we're not adding any additional emissions, greenhouse gases to the atmosphere, but make sure that we reach in a balance between what's been emitted and what can be absorbed back out of the atmosphere. So when we look at the carbon emissions, this is the average carbon footprint in the UK a couple of years back. You can break it down by the different elements of our everyday life. So things like food and drink make up a very big part of our footprints, but then also how we live, how we travel, and then also, of course, how we shop and so on. And in general, you can summarize these emissions that we produce as the 4 different areas of the carbon footprint. So around food, around energy, so that is home energy mainly, around transport, and around shopping. And the goal should be that we try to reduce our footprint in each of these areas as much as possible. And then if we think back to the balancing image that we saw earlier. And on the other hand, we want to create additional carbon sinks. So that is places, mechanisms that take greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere. So this is really the climate action that we need, is to focus on shrinking our carbon footprint in these 4 areas, and then also creating carbon sinks in our local areas. So which climate action? Because when we start thinking about climate action, what we can think of is a very, very, very long list of things that you can do. And I'm not expecting you to actually read all of this. I just wanted to show that with a quick brainstorm, or if you look at resources, you can find a very, very long list of things. And what I often see happen in local groups is then they kind of, you know, they hold there and think, oh my God, this is too much choice. Where do we even start? And I don't often quote Churchill, but this is a good one. It's better to do something than to do nothing while waiting to do everything. So that is really very true for community action on climate change, because a lot of groups kind of stop and just wait for the big chance to influence the big thing and do the great, you know, campaign, whilst, well, it's actually better to just start, do smaller things, do what you can, and then build up momentum from there. So when you do look at that big long list and you do get it together in your groups or with new allies, you can have a think about prioritizing your action. And one of the things you want to think about is difficulty. So how complex are the actions? Do you have the necessary expertise to deliver the actions? Can you already see big blockers? So if you're trying to rewild the local green, can you see that there might be some really big blockers that might not, you know, hinder the success of your initiative? And how long will it take to set up? So would it be something to maybe, you know, put in the back burner and focus on quick wins first? And another key thing can be external support. Are there, for example, national or local organizations that can help you, and how much resources are already available for you to get started? And then another really key thing is think about the impact of your activity. Does that does your initiative actually match where the carbon emissions are coming from in your local community? So if you find that most of your housing stock, for example, is really below standard, and that is really your greatest carbon emitter in your local community, then that might be the area where you want to focus, rather than a repair cafe, for example. Would this initiative actually reduce the emission, or is it just, would it, for example, could it even be considered greenwashing? Would it actually make a difference? And then also, are there any co-benefits? So for example, going back to the repair cafe example, there are co-benefits like community feeling and networking and skill sharing, and really social outcomes that come from initiatives like that too. And how many people do you reach? Do you only reach a handful of people, or do you want to reach a handful of people really meaningfully and really sustainably? Or do you want to reach out to a broader number of people, but then maybe the impact isn't as big because it might just be an information rather than actual behavior change? So once you've got a bit more clarity on what you want to do, there's just key things that, every project needs at least a rough plan, and you can always, start with the idea and then go down to scope. And this again is another downfall that I see in a lot of community groups, is a very fuzzy scope and a growing scope. So let's go back to the repair cafe example. So let's say your community group has decided they want to start a repair cafe, and then you get all of these other great ideas that you could add on to the repair cafe. Wouldn't it be great if we worked with these people and add also a swish and add also this and add also this? And suddenly you have a growth of scope that you can't manage anymore. So really try to keep your scope compact and well-defined, and really make a conscious decision to leave certain things out, even if they, you know, might fit well. Try to keep your scope tight and manageable. And then from your scope, you get a good idea what you actually want to do and how you want to deliver it. Then you know, you can define your deliverables. So for a repair cafe, what do you actually want to do? You want to book a venue and offer a repair service. When do you want to do it? So you're going to have a think about your program. When do you need to do certain things to make this happen? Who's your team that you're working with, and what is the budget, and are there any additional funding sources? So this is really the very basics of project planning. And if you get it right, and if you get your team on board buying into this, it can be really easy and straightforward. So speaking of teams, we have a couple of do's and don'ts around managing groups and volunteers. And again, something that I see from community groups is that they say they struggle to find supporters. And what has helped us when talking to groups is this realization of the 1%, 10% rule. So let's assume that you've got 3,000 people in your village. Then the 1% rule is that 1% of those are have the time, have the capability, have the will to actually be leaders in something. So out of 3,000 people in your village, 30 will actually be able and willing to become leaders. And it's key for you to find those 30 people. Don't waste your breath trying to persuade someone who's not going to step up. You have to find the right 1%. And then there are 270 who are generally interested and would like to get involved. But you have to find your 1% who are going to be the leaders, and the 10% who will want to get involved and want to support your cause. And environment is quite a key concern for most people. So you will be able to find your 10 and your 1%. And then when we talk about volunteers, there are the 3 R's of recruit, retain, and reward. So recruit, it's always a great idea to do your recruitment of volunteers and people to get involved around special occasions, national and international days, or even just local dates like fairs and parish council events, and maybe you have a health and well-being group, or you have already litter picking events going on, or food festivals, and try to engage with those sort of events, because they will generate interest, they will generate a buzz, and they can be they can really help you draw people in. Staying with events, you can, for example, organize talks or social events. Topics that always work well are ocean plastics and waste and recycling, but then also maybe current interests that come up. So for example, there was the environment bill, the climate emergency and environmental bill, and some people got interested in that. So you can use things that are going on at the moment, or COP. I mean, COP was the big one, wasn't it? So use current issues and try to generate interest around that, and put an event around that. And when you then add a sign-up sheet and an activity or something, then to really engage people, that is where you will capture their interest and get them involved. So that is around recruitment. And then how do you actually keep them engaged? And what can really help is when you create a group, you want to make sure that your overarching vision is clear and that people can really buy into it. And the other thing that can help is actually defining roles. Some people are a bit shy a bit away from defining roles, but it can really help volunteers to be clear of of what they are supposed to do and take ownership. So tell someone you are our comms, or you're really good with social media. Wouldn't you like to be in charge of comms? And they can go away and run with it. Or some people would like to take admin roles. Others love organizing events. They don't want to have anything to do with admin, but they really like planning events. And so you can define the different roles for that your group needs. And then when you want to recruit for those sort of roles, you can put together a little role description, and that can really help people to sign up and say, yes, I take ownership of this role. It will not only help you find people, it will help you retain the people that have already signed up to help you if they feel responsible for a certain piece of the work. And then retain and reward, they kind of merge together, because if you keep your volunteers happy, they will keep working with you. So make sure you meet in nice settings. It should always be a friendly and welcoming atmosphere, especially also with new volunteers. And make sure that everyone feels included. If you do have certain members who like to talk over people or ignore what other people have said, just make sure that you can manage that and make everyone feel included. Go where the energy is. If you have floated the idea of rewilding the green 10 times and no one's going for it, then maybe it's a time to put that on the back burner and go with something that your volunteers can get behind. Say thank you and recognize people. People will often say, oh, I don't like my picture taken and I don't want to be on Facebook. But then when their pictures, when they are actually shared and a big thank you, then no one will mind. So do that, share positive feedback with them, and just have some fun as well, other than just work. So schedule some socials in and celebrate your achievements. So on a similar note, what do good community events look like? One of the key things first up is partner up. Make sure that you work with others in your area that have similar goals, or where you can see a certain overlap. Partner up with them. You can always share the footfall and equipment and resources, and it will just make your life easier. And if after one event you find that you don't really want to work with that organization again, then just don't, and find other partners. But the more you can share, the broader your impact will be. Another tip is have an opener. So make it visual, make it inviting, have something that grabs people's attention. And that can be things like asking people for their ideas or opinions, or have a little quiz, or for example, this board here on the right was where people could say little things like that they liked around their area. Or then on the left there, that was an exercise where Cambridge Sustainable Food invited people to write pledges on plates. So it can be as big or small an interactive thing as you want to make it. And then something that sounds a bit cheesy, but it does actually make a difference, create a nice atmosphere. So for example, this repair cafe here, just by putting up some bunting and putting out some really nice cake, and making sure everyone had a hot drink, you can make people feel more welcome, and they will think back and think, oh, that was nice. It wasn't like a repair shop where you wait in a drafty hall. It was actually quite nice and cozy. So just making people feel welcome helps them feel relaxed, helps them feel open up, and will generate discussion. They will be more likely to listen to what you have to say and actually spend time talking to you and understanding your point of view. This is an interesting one. Have a narrow entry and exit point. I mean, of course, making sure that you know, have a fire exit where you need one, but it just means that people come into one space and leave to one space. So you can greet them at the entrance. You can start making that connection. You don't get people wander in, not knowing what's happening, and being, you know, and then kind of wander off again. By having that entrance point, you can welcome them, show them around, and get them involved from their arrival. And the same for the exit is when you can get them whilst they are leaving, you can make sure that they fill in the survey, leave some feedback, sign up to your newsletter, and encourage donations. Just a really minor one, but the pandemic has actually shown that volunteer briefings on Zoom work really well. So even though all of your volunteers might be in the same village, it could be worth just setting up a Zoom meeting the day before your event and making sure that everyone's on the same page, rather than sending around lengthy emails with all the details where we're going to meet and what. You can still do that, but it will be more effective if you just combine that with a 15-minute Zoom a couple of days before. Everyone can say hi, everyone knows who's there, and people will be much more relaxed when they actually come to your event and will be much readier to start working. Just generally avoid summer holidays and the first week after September. Try to avoid clashing with other huge events around your areas, and just Friday evenings and Sundays are typically not great for getting lots of people involved in events. And then just have fun. Make sure that you, even though if you have fun, make sure that you get your message around, that, you know, what you're trying to get across is displayed at least once across your venue. So for example, for a repair cafe, it will make sense to have a display of why you're doing it. You know, there's, you know, avoiding waste, or have flyers, have info on the refreshment tables, for example. Just make sure that you actually also, with all the fun you're having, that you're also delivering the message, and maybe not only having it, you know, in one way, not only having a poster stuck to the side of the room, but maybe having it in repeated in different locations around your venue. And then going back again to that point of really make sure that you capture the people that come to your events by getting them to sign up to the newsletter, and make sure that you mention any upcoming events, and ask them to the next thing where they can make more connections. And then just a really quick one on communication, if we still have time. So I'm really going to whiz through it. So when we talk about climate change, if you talk about climate action in your local communities, just make sure that you understand who you're talking to. So audience is everything, and really understanding what you want to say to your audience. And there's a really great resource called Rural Attitudes to Climate Change by the Climate Outreach charity, and they've really broken down how to target rural community when you talk about climate change. And it is available on our website that I'm going to share in the chat in a moment. And that report shows insights like this. So for example, how likely are rural communities or citizens to adopt certain climate action. So they are more likely to recycle and reuse plastic, but they are then less likely to walk and cycle, for example. So all of these really useful insights are in that report. So I really recommend you having a look at it when you think about how to communicate climate action to your local communities. And then they also did the Britain Talks Climate Report, that they update regularly, and that gives you even more information around do's and don'ts. So some of the tips that we've picked up is making sure that you listen. So have a meaningful conversation rather than talking at them. Make sure that in your community that you want to influence, you also listen and take on board what they say. Speak personally. So don't say it is important that we, but say I found it's important to me that I reduce my car travels because I know it's that, and that. So speak personally, tell your own story or tell the stories of others, and that will be much more impactful than sharing stats and numbers. And make it tangible and vivid. So, don't say we need to recycle more, but what does that actually mean? Getting it right, what are the actual actions that people can take? And if you tell the story of how to set up the right recycling setup, for example, rather than just talking about why it's important, that really helps. Speak in positives and not negatives, so always focusing on the opportunity. Don't say stop driving, but say focus on the alternatives, and again focusing on the benefits that might come with the alternatives. Be aware of the context and being timely. So so that, for example, means, for example, if you want to talk about vegan, it might make sense to do that in January. Or if you want to talk about reducing waste, things like Christmas might be a good chance where people are actually quite aware of how much waste is being produced by holidays like that. So just make sure that you kind of are aware of what's going on. And yeah, address everyday concerns. Don't be too abstract. If it's got nothing to do with their daily lives, they are very unlikely to get it behind what you're saying, and definitely avoid technical jargon. So greenhouse gases are about as technical as you should get. If you talk about CO2 equivalents and that sort of thing, you will lose a lot of people. So really try to break it down for people. So key takeaways is, number one, understand your audience. Who are you talking to? Engage with their values. As I said, environment is a key concern for most people, but just finding the right angle to talk to them about this. And think about your messenger. So not every, so for example, if you're focusing on social media, you might not actually reach the people that you're trying to talk to. So really think, what other who am I talking to, and who am I? And so the messenger is not only the channel that you're communicating through, but who are you? Is it maybe more impactful if you find a parish councillor to talk to your audience, or a district councillor? Or is it maybe, will they listen more to David Attenborough than to Greta Thunberg? So making sure that you find the right person and channel to talk to your audience through, and use visuals as much as you can. You can see my presentation is listed with visuals, and it really helps people to understand what you're saying. Just a quick one on comms channels. So as I've already mentioned, social media, think about websites. You don't have to create your own. You can use websites that are already existing, maybe find another organization that you can link up with. Is it actually worth having your own newsletter? Or again, can you maybe get a column in the parish newsletter? Are there already other community newsletters or websites that are going out that you can also engage with? Are there any existing events, regular events that you should be using? Or are there any other media such as print or local radio that are relevant to the audience that you're trying to reach? And as I said, that were the 16 hours worth of training squeezed into 20 minutes. So I'm sure you'll have questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Annie. You did an amazing job at giving us a whistle-stop tour of 16 hours and 20 minutes. So it was really good and packed with information. I know I really took a lot from that, and I'm picking up tips and tools along the way of definitely to apply to my own work and when I'm talking to people, and especially to use in my own work. So thank you for really interesting and engaging talk as well. So just once again, if people have questions now, which we've got some time for, then please either raise your hand or put them in the chat, and we can read them out if you'd rather not be recorded or anything. And so does anyone have any questions? Rachel, you've got your hand up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was great. One thing I was thinking about, I read somewhere on Aim High, this organisation has a lot of good advice in communicating about climate change. They'd recommended mentioning a sort of a list of people, and I was thinking perhaps at public events it might be quite good with the sort of the most impactful things they could do. And they had suggested, looking into where your bank and your pension invests its money as very, very significant, one of the sort of the largest things that you could do. And I wondered if anybody did that at any events, or what anyone thought of that kind of tips and the investing of money. It's quite a specific question, sorry, it was just something that was on my mind.
Annie, do you have any comments on that at all, or?
I'm afraid I don't. I can have a look on our website whether we have any recommendations for that, but you're absolutely right. It is one of those things, and like Siobhan said earlier in her presentation, you need to have to think about all of these layers, like all of these areas that you can impact, and where you're putting your money is definitely one of them. Can have but there are a lot of resources online, I guess, that you can have a look at, and it is definitely one of the to-dos that you can include in your things you should be doing list.
Thank you.
And Siobhan, did you have something to say on that?
It's a little bit off what was actually asked, but I know that I have invested, I think something like £20 or something in various different oil companies through an organisation which actually uses the power of shareholders to influence the boards of these companies towards more sustainable action. So I know it's not really the response to the question, but it's an interesting and powerful way of using a relatively small amount of money in quite an impactful way. I'll have a look and see if I can find the link and put it up there.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Thank you. Thanks. And Bridget's just asked, can the council share examples of what groups might spend the Community Chest Awards on? And so I can actually answer that. And so they've suggested recently that you could tie something in with tree planting and the Jubilee, and so a nice idea might be planting a landmark tree for the Jubilee, which has obviously the benefits for the environment, and then also it's a nice sort of reminder of the Jubilee, and then also sort of small tree planting events as well. I know we also offer the 6 Free Trees scheme and the Zero Carbon Communities, but for sort of smaller scale things like planting a few trees or planting a wildflower patch on a smaller scale, it would be a good opportunity for that. John, you've got your hand up. Would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, it's just a practical one, really. We're a very small parish. I live in Hayden, which is out the back of Duxford, very south of the county. We're 100 houses. What practically is the advantage of us passing a climate emergency agreement for a parish council of our size? What practical benefits do we get?
So, oh, Siobhan, you've just unmuted.
I think it's a way of making a public statement. There is no, you know, we as a council don't give certain things to parish councils that have declared climate emergency and withhold them from ones that haven't. But it's a way of acknowledging the seriousness of the situation, really, I would say. Don't know if anybody else has anything to add.
Can I say, I think it's also a way of, you know, engaging your community. So if you're saying that our parish council, albeit, you know, for a tiny little hamlet, are declaring a climate emergency, you can then go out to your residents and say, okay, so, you know, what do you think we should be doing, and what do you think you can be doing? And it might be those little tiny things like putting up a Swift box, or it might be, you know, be bigger things. So I think it's a way of starting the conversation with your communities. And just because you're small doesn't mean you can't plant a forest.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
No worries, thank you very much. Does anyone, any other questions at all? Remember to, or if you'd rather just, yeah, do feed them into the chat box. I've got a little practical one in the meantime for you, Annie. If you're in a climate group and you feel like the momentum's maybe waning a bit and you need to sort of drum up that enthusiasm and that momentum again, what sort of key tips would you have for that?
So have fun. I think that is one of the key things, is bring everyone back together again. And I saw that in one of our, in the local area where I live. So for full disclosure, I live in North Herts, so I live outside of South Cambs. And we found that during the pandemic, because we couldn't meet and we couldn't really have proper events, the energy really drained, and you know, and was really and you could feel it in the conversations going on, that, you know, people were getting really negative and really really down. And then we had this one event, like one of the first real live events where we would all see each other again, and we've all, you know, worked with each other for years. Or some of us have, you know, known each other for years, and then also connected to new people. And the difference it made, everyone was just so delighted on the day that, you know, you could actually go out and see people and talk, and not only talk about climate action, but just, you know, how are the kids, and, you know, what's been happening with your garden, how are the bees, and so on. And that just made a huge difference. And from that then spiraling, we have had a lot of new energy and new projects and new things starting up, just because people felt, you know, reinvigorated. So yeah, have a social, have an event, do something that you can actually deliver. Maybe put, as I said earlier, maybe put the big project on hold for a moment and focus on a quick win. Have a film and a snack, and just do something nice and positive.
Oh, that's really helpful. Thank you. And Rachel's just asked as well, is there anywhere in particular that you'd recommend that might be a good place to find someone to be a guest speaker at a community event?
I mean, yeah, we find that difficult as well, as an organization that, you know, is regularly asked to speak or wants to put on trainings, because these organizations that do produce all of these great resources, they often, you know, rely on funds. If you can find funding for guest speaker, things like climate outreach and so on, and possible, they will provide a speaker if you can provide some funding. And then otherwise, try the university, try, and then what we also find is that our little organizations like ChemCycle, Cambridge Sustainable Food, Cambridge Carbon Footprint, and, you know, these organizations that we do like to skill share, and we will kind of go to someone's event and they come to our event. So that's kind of linking back to what I was saying earlier about, you know, finding your allies and staying in touch with other organizations. You do them a favor, they do you a favor, and then you can yeah, be at each other's events.
Oh, that's really good to know. Yeah. And Birgitte's also just, I've seen in the chat, suggested, said, I always offer a free lunch to my volunteers. Food always brings people together, which is a really nice tip. And yeah, I know that would pull me in as well. Someone's also just said, could SCDC publish, Jenny, sorry, has just said, could SCDC publish a list of climate groups so we can get help and ideas from each other? And I really like that idea, and I'll definitely look into doing that, and think about putting that on our website, because yeah, that's a really good idea, and good idea to get networks going. And yeah, that's what we really want to do, is help people connect with other groups, and so share ideas rather than reinventing the wheel. And so yeah, it'd be really, I guess, a really good opportunity for that as well. And I know that sort of some groups are planning fairs as well in the summer, so that's quite, I guess, as more community face-to-face events like that happen, then that's quite a good chance to, yeah, share resources, and to do each other favors, I guess, by going to the different events. So yeah, that's really good. So we're actually we're at 8 o'clock, so we'll have to sort of wrap up there, but thank you everyone so much for joining us tonight, and it was really interesting to hear all your questions, and I really hope that you're able to take something valuable away. I know I did, and so yeah, it's really exciting seeing what all of you are doing, and really great to see all the action happening in the district. So I'd really like to thank Bridget for introducing the event, and also Siobhan for your talk, for your on sort of what the council are doing, and also calculating your carbon emissions. That was really helpful, and to Annie as well for talking to us today. It was really, yeah, really interesting and valuable as well. And so just, yeah, to keep your eyes peeled as well, because we're the proposal for the 4th round of the Zero Carbon Communities grant goes to the Grants Advisory Committee next week. So yeah, so keep your, and hopefully will launch in spring of this year, and so keep your eyes peeled for more information for that. And also yeah, so these events are happening throughout the next fortnight, so do if you're interested in any of the events, then do sign up, and more information is available on our website. So yeah, do sign up and come along to some more good events. So yeah, thank you everyone, and I hope you have a good evening.